Hello everybody, welcome back to ClapperCast. I'm your host as always, Carson Timar, and today I'm joined by the good old Nicolò Grasso as we review Agnès Varda's Jacquot de Nantes. I know I am saying that probably horrifically wrong, but isn't that part of the fun of the show? This is one of Agnès Varda's most underseen features. Literally, if you go on Letterboxd and you sort by popularity, this is her least favorite feature-length narrative project. But this is one that we absolutely fell in love with. An unconventional biopic breaking down the childhood and capturing the development of her future husband, as in real life he is sitting on his deathbed dying of AIDS after a very, very complex few years filled with grief and controversy. This is an absolutely heartbreaking project that not only shares Varda's love for her husband, but also the power of filmmaking and his love for storytelling. While I think film fans and obviously fans of this director and Varda are going to be very, very into this film and get a lot from it, I think this is far more of a universal project than some give it credit for, and I hope today not only can we celebrate the film on the podcast, but maybe share its passion and love with a few others who haven't seen it yet. As I mentioned, this is an underrated Varda, but still, I am so excited that we're back on the podcast talking about Varda. It's been a couple years since our episode on One Sings, the Other Doesn't, and we are back today. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the show. Now let's get to our full review of Jacquot de Nantes. I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. Do not put it in the comments.
T'as pas Blanche-Neige? Non. De toute manière, je m'en fiche. Parce qu'elle sait pas faire le grand écart. Et moi, si. Vas-y, essaie, toi.
Qu'est-ce que tu fais?
Une ballerine.
C'est quoi?
C'est une danseuse. Ça vous a plu?
Okay, Nick, I am so excited to be talking Varda once again on the podcast. We just did a quick road through memory lane, and it's been like 2 years since we talked about this director. I cannot see another director more fitting to end our month looking at female filmmakers. And talking about probably her most when it comes to feature productions, narrative productions. Probably her most untalked about and I know at least on Letterboxd, literally her most unseen feature. Jacquot de Nantes, probably pronouncing that wrong. I apologize to everyone at home. I will start because I'm very excited about this because this is a very, very interesting project. Again, kind of picked it randomly. I look for films that no one on the podcast has logged on Letterboxd. Just I think that's the most interesting. And naturally, this one being, again, bottom of the barrel when it comes to narrative productions from Varda. No one had at least logged. I don't know if you've seen it, just not logged it, but regardless, pick the film. And I was really quite blown away by this because I didn't even know what to expect from this film. Varda and her longtime husband and everyone, before you watch this, I would highly recommend you watch Beaches with Agnes. That really goes into her love and her grief for this man who was there with her for so much of her life. In his dying days, like his last year of life, or last probably 2 years with production, she creates this film, which is in part and largely a biopic of his childhood, him growing up, his love for movies developing, his family going through the war, just everything with that, with such a loving eye. But then it's also cut with these little references and clips from his filmography, which is also cut with interviews and little scenes of him now in the present living. It's a very, very unique film when it comes to narrative and comes to direction with these three kind of distinct identities. And it's one that I loved. I mean, I think this is absolutely a standout project we've talked about this year. One that is so entirely dedicated to love. The love she shares for her husband, the love he has for his childhood and his family, the love you can have for cinema, the love you can have for creation, storytelling. A lot of it is about cinema, but it's also about stage productions. It's about the power of puppets. It's so much in here where if you have this love for storytelling, it's all around you and it gives you life. It literally gives the world color. We'll get into the details more and more, but like on a first initial thoughts, it moved me. It excited me. I think this is, I remember gosh, it was maybe 4 years ago at this point. We did an episode with Alina where we all brought one of our random favorite films to the table, and you brought Cinema Paradiso.
Yeah, I
This is
remember.
similar to where like that film I think is more universal. This is definitely more of a biopic about this person's life, but very similarly gives me a lot of energy. I really adore this one, so I am so thrilled we get to talk about it. Nick, what is your relationship with the film? What's your relationship with Varda? And then what are your thoughts on the movie?
Well, relationship with the film, it was actually my first time watching it, which feels very special. It's a movie that I had been saving for quite a while because I knew of its existence, I want to say like 5 or 6 years ago. When I started going through Varda's filmography properly, I still have seen like only half of her films, which feels like nothing. She worked a lot. She worked a lot between documentaries, short film, features, like you mentioned. A very eclectic, long-running filmography, easily for a female director, probably among the most expansive, which is unfortunately not a given. But with Varda, she's always so playful and surprising, both in content and in form, that something like Jacquot de Nantes is very unexpected and also exactly what Agnès Varda doing a biopic of her husband's childhood would look like. It's everything that you mentioned, just the documentary elements are blended into this larger fictional narrative, which is actually based on the memories and recollections that Jacques Demy had before he passed away. Before he passed away of AIDS, might I add, as well. It's a very complicated relationship, the one that the two of them had. It's also a relationship that they kept, and I would say rightfully so, private. There's not many informations. I've read everything from Jacques Demy was bisexual to he was a closeted gay man to they had an open relationship to he left her because he wanted to engage in more homosexual activities. Like all of that speculation, which fair enough, people are very much invested in their stories, in their romance, but you watch something like this film, like Jacques de Nantes, and it just swoops you up, makes you dream, makes you cry. I think the ending of this film really, really got to me in a way that I was not expecting. But I had the feeling, you just start the movie out, and you have these beautiful shots of his paintings, of Demis's paintings that he made over the last years of his life. And then you just see him and he's talking, and then we cut to black and white childhood. I was like, this is gonna be so special. And this is, I'm not gonna recover easily from this film. Um, yeah, no, I'm excited to talk about it and just delve into some of the filmmaking techniques that Varda uses, but also just the appreciation not only of cinema, which we'll talk about. I'm curious also how much you are familiar, how much you like Jacques Demy's films, but also just a love for theater, and you mentioned like the puppets and marionettes, stop motion, all of that. It's a full package in that sense, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I'd love to get your thoughts as a filmmaker on this because you are a creative storyteller yourself. So fascinated there. I'll say for me, the only thing I've seen this week, I watched Donkey Skin. Never saw
Nice.
his filmography, but I randomly would just I had the four major ones and I was going to get through all of them. I didn't have time. And then I was like, I'll just watch. I randomly picked Donkey Skin, which is like literal cinematic magic. Jean Couture references we don't need to get into.
Jean Marais is
Yeah.
there.
I was
Your boy.
like, I feel like I go crazy. I feel like I'm like now like a drug addict almost, where I watch any film and I'm like, oh, there's John. Like, oh, I see the connection to my boy now. To where it's like I feel like I look in the clouds when I see him at this point. But that film just is incredible. It really is like when you talk about cinematic fairy tales, talking about costume design, bringing just like again magic of production design. To life. That film is amazing, and it's so much in here because as you mentioned, a lot of this, I guess it's interesting to me, both with this and actually Beaches with Agnes, is how much in these very creative endeavors, like Donkey Skin is so much a fairy tale, right? And like a way, I guess, from what you'd expect from like grounded reality, but how much of these creatives, they put themselves and their worlds and their families and their friends into these projects. And this film does a wonderful job. If you're a big Demi fan, and I'm sure you can probably speak to this better than I can, this movie has a lot of references. It goes through a lot. I mean, even from some of his amateur works I was looking up, there's a great video on YouTube that does like a comparison between certain shots in
nice.
the film and then his actual filmography. And like there's so much here where you really get the sense of like, I would be fascinated, I guess, to go deeper into his work now after seeing this film and having more context for who he was. But I think for me, the creative process, both the love for the creative process, but also the power of film. And it's something Varda also does in her filmography, where you look at all of her films and whether or not you see Varda directly in those. Beaches with Agnes, very as much so her going film by film and being like, hey, this is how it was just my story and my family. And these films are me and my memories projected onto film. Nick, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky at NickyGrad97, and you can find my short films and videos on YouTube and Vimeo at Enjoy the Movies. And also, you can listen to the Anatomy of an Adaptation podcast. Carson is occasionally a guest there. Other lovely people from Clapper also guest there, where we just talk about books and their films that were adapted from them. So go check it out. I think when this episode comes out, we will have the Zone of Interest episode release be up, as well as the Wild at Heart conversation that I had here with Carson. So yeah, lots of fun listening for you all.
So much good stuff over there. You can find me on Blue Sky and Letterboxd, just Carson Timar. Words on Clapper and Buttered Popcorn, and Filmotomy. Thank you so much for listening and watching. We'll see you next week as we kick off our Miyazaki special. Goodbye. Did you know you could be listening to this episode of ClapperCast early? Well, if you go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/ClapperCastPodcast, there are 3 different tiers that you can choose from, each with their own means of support and each with their own means of rewards. You can get access to early episodes, bonus monthly episodes, bonus reviews. You can see our schedule early. Of course, thank you everyone who's already joined us on Patreon, and we hope to see you over there soon. It feels like Demi does a very similar thing, at least according to what we see in this movie. How did the movie hit you as like a creative, again, filmmaker, director, screenwriter? Like, how did this film, I guess, scratch that itch for you? Did you relate to yourself in what you were seeing?
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. I don't want to be. I'm trying to think of like a better, like more old example to look at. Maybe Cinema Paradiso kind of qualified, but something like Fablemans, all these stories about or even that. One thing that I did think about actually while watching this was the Terence Davies "The Long Day Closes." Which is similarly like semi-autobiographical about the director as a young kid, in that case in Ireland, like discovering movies and his own homosexuality. But with this film, I think for every good creative, it's hard to not put parts of yourself and the world that surrounds you into the films, also to just process them. I think it's so simple. You see it not so much, I mean, not only with those constant, essentially flash forwards that you see. You literally have for a split second, hand goes right, clip from the movie, hand goes back. It's like, okay, this is, you know what? This is connecting to that other thing, which goes beyond just a simple wink and a nod. If it were like, just for the diehard fans of the me, it's like, oh my god, that was the reference. Like, no, they are like, that's one of the goals of the film. I think is to just show how so much of what he experienced in childhood, growing up, and also discovering his own passion for filmmaking and art making, he was understanding the world around him, and it just stuck with him for so many years. Um, but yeah, no, that was incredibly relatable. It always is in a way. There's so much of myself in my own works, and so to always see other people feeling like that, even with something as playful as you mentioned, Donkey Skin, Podang, it's so joyful and also weird. Just this classic fairy tale brought to life in a colorful musical setting, and you see how that kind of started. It could have felt so much faker. Not so much talking about Jacques Demy, but like if anyone else made something like this, it could have felt so forced. It's like, oh my god, were there really all of those things in his childhood that connected to movies he made later? Aren't we reaching a bit? But Agnès Varda, I want to say, has perfected her own brand of documentaries. I was watching some of her short documentaries, especially over the past week, and it's so, I don't know how she does it, but the way she brings to life vivid images with like one line of voiceover and two cuts, it's magic. It's talent. It's poetry, honestly, and so she does that again and again throughout this film. This constant changes in style as well keeps it from getting stale, keeps it from getting very much like you're just following this linear story. It's like, oh, this happened and then this happened. The way they bring to life this family portrait, it's, was his family really that delightful? Probably, yeah. Like he says in the opening, he remembers it as a happy childhood, and you see it. The parents get along very nicely. They managed to survive and endure the Nazi occupation of France, which in my head I was thinking, where were they? Like, where's Nantes? And I was like, oh, it's like on the far west. It's like near the coast of France. So yeah, it just further reinforced just how deep the occupation actually went. The father was forced to work in the like the shell making, I think they say, or something like that. Like yeah, the war machine of the time. But yeah, no, they endured all of that, and you see how they managed to have the kids. At least they managed to have some semblance of a normal childhood, despite all of the horrors that they were not witnessing firsthand, but they were just hearing and bombardments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they got sent away for a period, but I think the family unit is like the core key of this film. And I mean, there's
Mhm.
such poetry in the ideas mentioned. The fact that through all this, his mother constantly sings while she does the dishes and bakes the pies, which
Yeah.
then he loves in Snow White, which then he brings into Donkey Skin. It's a rather complex portrait of like the power of film, not to create, I guess, necessarily originality even in this sense, but like to project what we love about our lives and project what we love about life and project these memories, and how, throughout all of his life, when he makes Donkey Skin forever, that's going to be a tribute to his mother. I mean, that's poetry. That is stunning. Like, you sit there and like, yeah, in the movie it's sweet and it's kind, I know that's so joyful, but now it has this entire new meaning. I agree. I mean, I think Varda obviously makes fantastic narrative films, some of the best ever created, but her documentary work across the board, when it comes to showcasing humanity, her Black Panther documentary, I think, is fantastic in this sense, where he takes a really political issue and really gets to the core humanity of it.
Mhm.
It's something she does here with a subject, I mean, she loves. And it's so like, you can tell even in these memories, even in these works of fiction on the set with these actors, she loves spending time with her husband as a kid. She thinks he is the funniest kid and the greatest kid, and she loves the family that raised him. And she loves, even has empathy with every decision, whether or not you agree with some of the things like sending them away. It's just, this film is so utterly joyful in a way that you don't necessarily see a lot. I mean, as you mentioned, like, there is definitely like Nazi occupation, there is hardship, there is horror, there is economic issues. There's a lot here where it's very easy to turn to like, life was really sad and life was really brutal, and this is the sadness. And even then, naturally, you can be like, well, cinema was my escapism. Like, that's a very natural narrative, but it never goes in that way.
Mhm.
It just constantly stays with like this childhood innocence in a way that is so authentic. And it's authentic also, I like that, because we're getting his memories and his thoughts, all compounded also by bringing in not just his works from his career, but again, the scenes of him in his modern works. Not that there necessarily is a ton of that in the film, but there are scenes where he is there talking, he's showing how to shoot with the camera. and also just having the knowledge that he is nearing his death and people are aware of that, and this is a goodbye. Also, there's a natural emotion there that's really, really palpable. I mean, I think it's hard to not watch this film and just like cry because of the emotions. But again, for a film with that weighing on it, with this identity weighing on the film, and I messaged you before I watched this, I was like, oh my god, this film is going to destroy me. Like, I was not prepared, didn't realize all the context. It is a film that still is so just utterly joyful when I look back on it. It's like a little sweet treat despite all that negativity, which is really hard to do. But I think Varda accomplishes it perfectly.
Yeah, and just, oh man, when it first cut to a close up of Jacques Devine, let's say present day, just this, it's so, it's not claustrophobic, but it's warm, it's tender, it's genuine, it's all of these beautiful things. It's not, it's made with love. The entire film is made with love. Um, and also just the way that she shoots it, like you mentioned, um the references, visual references to his other films, just actually, I want to say the entire film was shot on location. At least all of the exteriors were definitely shot in Nantes. They actually thank the city as well in the end credits, and you see some of the same locations in his movies later on, where he actually shot one of his early films in a place, and then Lola was shot in the same bar, and all of that. Some of the people's names come back. There's like someone who works in his father's mechanic garage, sorry, who's called Guy, and Guy is the protagonist of Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Like all those little things. It's so cool. It's so cool. But I really loved the way, and you mentioned it in your opening as well, is the way that she introduces color throughout the film. Just these explosions of life and beauty and joy that comes from just him discovering the world and discovering new feelings and new emotions, which also works for you as an audience member. Like the way that I was feeling watching it, every time we cut to color, it's almost like I had forgotten what that looked like, and the people look different, everything just feels different. It's used sparingly as well. It's not like overused, it's not a gimmick or anything. It's so cool, it's so cool. And there's also like a very funny scene towards the end where he has become like little Jacquot before he becomes Jacques, because his grandfather, and that's another passage. Sorry, I'm rambling here,
No, you're
but there's
good.
also another passage that I loved where very early on, like Jacques lost his grandfather who had his same name, and he tells, like proper Jacques tells, that says like, "Hey, just seeing my own name on this grave made me feel like the finite nature of life, that this is not gonna last," which is very rough, I can imagine, for a 9-year-old, 8-year-old. So for him to, yeah, just embrace life, embrace all these moments.
Was also a unique like play on expectations, considering this director and his body of work is known for being so colorful. I forgot I also watched Umbrellas. I just like, I don't know why that like blanked from my mind. That's a great film, but like every one of his movies is known for color. So in this film, new black and white, and you have these little moments of color. It also, I think, speaks to like the power of capturing things on film, as I kind of already alluded to, where it's like memories fade, right? You die, your memories go away, things turn in black and white. But when you capture something on color, when you capture something on film, and you capture these memories on film, whether or not you're direct about, hey, these are my memories, or you just have little references or little characters that mean something to you, they will always live on screen. They'll always live on that frame of film. And there's something really beautiful about that. I mean, I think this film overall is just so, I don't know. I guess the more I talk about it, the more just warm I feel about like on every sense. I love what this film means as far as filmmaking. also just like the power of all these kids loving film and being creatively inspired. I think that is so powerful when it comes like then to see Snow White for the first time. What a magical experience that must have been. Like, and we obviously both have a love for cinema, so like I think that's obviously connects quite deeply here. We love his filmography and his work. From what I've seen, at least, I think you also appreciate it quite a bit. We love Varda. We love Varda's love for him. I'm kind of repeating myself, I guess, but it feels almost overwhelming with how much love is just present within the film. The one negative I will say about the movie, just on a viewing experience, sometimes it's a little erratic. We'll give you that. I think sometimes the pacing is very, very like memory. And sometimes you're just jumping around so quickly, it can feel a little bit, I don't even want to say disjointed because you can follow it. It just feels like almost overwhelming at points where I was like, hold on, like, what are we like, where are we, what are we doing? But yeah, I mean, it's also just a film I think that will get better the more Demi you watch. I think it's hard to imagine this film not opening up more and more. Have you seen all of his works, or have you only seen
Oh
some? Or
no,
yeah.
I've seen his main 4 feature films or something like that. Like I said, Brothers. I've seen The Young Girls of Rochefort. I've seen Podan. I've seen another one. Maybe it was Lola. I don't remember. And then just a collection of his short films, including one of his first films that he made in university. I managed to watch that this week. It's called Dead Horizons.
Mm.
Which kind of goes to something, and that was the surprising part. Like you mentioned, the fact that he's known for his colorful films. He's also known for me, like every time I think about him, is that the movies are so colorful, but the actual content is very dark. Not necessarily in terms of like violence or anything like that, but emotionally they're very rough. Even something like Donkey Skin. Like at the end of the day, the fairy tale is fucked up, and it doesn't shy away from how weird it is. Um, and so even like this early short that he made, one of his first ones that's available, called Dead Horizons, it's about him like films himself, he acts in the film in this short, as a guy who just gets dumped. Basically, that's 7 minutes, no dialogue, guy gets dumped and he's just very lonely and depressed. But the way that he frames it and the way that it's paced, it just shows his love for cinema, but also it's very inherently sad. And so even throughout this movie, like it's joyful and everything that we talked about, but the moment where it started to click with me even more is when he Anders discovers his love of cinema, where we enter, let's say, the end of the second stage, because it's almost split up in 3 acts where you have 3 different actors playing the character as he gets older in the childhood. And when you get towards the end of the second stage, when he starts embracing filmmaking more, he's very frustrated, he's very upset, and understandably so. Understandably so for him, understandably so for his family, because he wants, of course, to just make movies in his attic, these little cardboard figures, essentially like stop motion creations. And his father, understandably, wants him to have a proper job that will bring money and food to the table. That's not just playing around with toys, and just shooting them. Um, it doesn't go in the extreme direction that something like Fableman does, or other films about like a young person wants to become an artist and the family stops it. It's all Billy Elliot. Because at the end of the day, it is a biopic, explicitly so. It's not like we're changing the names of places and people. It's like, no, this is what happened. And he says it at the end, like, they understood when they saw that other people reacted positively to his works from acclaimed directors, or was it a producer or something at the end who says like, hey, you should give this a shot because you have something there. They let him follow his dreams, which is just very beautiful. And I like that Jacques himself gets to talk about that. It's not like recreation, this building, like, this fake drama about, oh my god, are people gonna like, oh my god, he's gonna show him the film during the intermission. Like, no, it just tells you what happened.
It's odd because it's not even like they don't even try to really put in like conflict. I like there are negative things, but there's no conflict, there's no enemy, there's no bully. Like
There's no
it's
love interest. There's like
no.
a small presence of this neighbor girl that he's friends
Yeah.
with that he kind of likes, but that's it.
And it's kind of more innocent, like child playing around. It's not perceived as like full blown romance at all. No.
Oh, and she gets pregnant, someone else's child, and
Yeah. One thing I'm fascinated by, and I also think like the performances we've got to mention are very good here. A lot of child performers who are not always the best, but here are all phenomenal. It's strange to me that the lack of impact this movie had, considering this was pretty late Varda. People know who Varda is at this point, debuted at Cannes. Maybe it's just because this director Demi didn't necessarily, I guess, especially in the US, like blow up, I guess, as a household name. But like even these actors, none of them who played the main actor went on to do like anything else. This feels, again, it's Agnes's most least watched, and literally if you go on YouTube and type in like review of this film, nothing pops up. I think there's literally one review on all of YouTube. It's very odd to me. I don't know if you have any theories, but it's just for a film that is this powerful, this personal, it feels destined for this love of movies in the film. Even if you don't know this guy, this director, the love here is so palpable, I feel. It's odd that this does not catch on. This does not have that conversation. Do you have any theories on why that might be?
I want to say probably accessibility. I think right now many other filmmakers and people have said it. We are in a golden age of accessibility. When this film came out in 1993, already Varda was. I want to say that Varda, to be honest, like we love to talk about her, before Faces Places came out, I swear I'd never heard of her. Never heard of her. After that film came out, it was one of those things where it's like, hey, she's actually pretty good. It's like, hey, there's that film Cleopatra 5 to 7, which many people recommend at film schools, and like it just built on itself. 2017 was also the era when I started using Letterboxd more, where more people started getting on Letterboxd. So to have this film come out, it was just like, hey, this was great. What else has she made? And all of that builds up on itself. Like at this point, Jacquot de Nantes is like what, 10,000 people that have logged it, which is not a stupid number, but it's very little people. Meanwhile, Cleo was seen by 250,000 people for a 1960s French art house film. Is good numbers, I would say, good numbers. But I think it's just a matter of time. Well, for the actual actors, like I don't know what happened. I didn't check like a making of the film. Like, did she intentionally look for actors who did more theater? Did she look for more unknowns just to not have? Which I think was part of the artistic choice. To be honest, is like none of them are names, so you're not seeing Catherine Deneuve or whoever else. Also, to not have like crossovers from the actual films that Jacques Demy worked on, but it works to not have these big names that can take away from the story itself. And then maybe they just didn't want to keep acting. Like, I don't know. Sometimes it happens. There's some of these films where you just read and it's like, yeah, they made the movie with that director. They were like, I'm done. That was fine for me. My favorite performance in here, and like all three of the kids, especially the young one, the first one I really loved. But Brigitte de Villepoix, the one who plays the mother, she was so good. Just so earnest. Maybe they were not actors that had. Maybe they didn't even do the theater. Like, I don't know if they were all unknowns. Who knows? But it has its own charm to it, right? The fact that they're not.
Absolutely.
Shame that
But
didn't
that's
go for
something that
bigger careers.
Varda.
Yeah.
That's something Varda does, though, is also like cast local people, especially. But like she's very commonly just kind of pick random people. It's just a shame because I think the film's great and they're great.
Yeah.
If I had a little bit more time, I should have watched Agnes Tells a Sad and Happy Story, 2008. It's 17 minutes long. It's her and the collaborators behind this film coming together to talk, I guess, about their experiences making it through grief and everything. Didn't see it again, so sorry everyone. Go check it out and I guess find the answers for yourself.
Is it on the Criterion channel? Maybe
It is.
Do you know?
It is not.
It's like a DVD extra. Interesting. I'll need to
someone, it's out there somewhere, but not on the Criterion channel, sadly. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. It's interesting. Varda, I guess, her 60s work, I think, is very influential. I think people talk about, but then she does have a pretty big break there, where she doesn't necessarily have a lot that's getting talked about. So that's fair. This kind of comes in the middle of it. I guess as she goes into more documentary work. But very good. I mean, like, I think we're kind of circling the same points at this point. I think the cinematography is wonderful, I'll say. Black and white cinematography for the most part. Stunning.
So many dollies. So many dollies. It's gorgeous.
Still very visually dynamic. There's 3 different cinematographers on this. One of them works a lot with Claire Denis, so like I'm not shocked that it looks absolutely wonderful. Production design, I know you mentioned they shot a lot probably on location. That would make sense because even in black and white, even as it's a period piece, you just get sucked into this world. It feels like it's living. It feels like you're with these kids running down the street, jumping into the lake, or the river that's passing near town. Like, you're in the auto mechanic shop of his dad, which is just like this film also does a great job just capturing kind of the like childhood wonder of very normal spaces. A park square as they're giving a little puppet show, his dad's shop, as I mentioned. These are locations that are not necessarily fantastical in the way you'd expect to talk about a fantastical location, but they have such meaning and such wonder, and such power, whether you are able to enjoy your time there or you're being ripped away from these locations like the characters are at certain points. They hold a lot of meaning. So even just as a filmmaking standpoint, incredibly strong work here. And also, again, the editing between its multiple different identities. Never thought it was out of place, never thought it was that confusing, never thought, oh my gosh, why are we cutting to now this extended sequence from one of his films? I thought that all worked really, really flawlessly. So I was impressed by the filmmaking. It's hard when you talk about, I feel like, someone like Varda, because it's like, no shit, the filmmaking is great. Like, I don't know, like, it's kind of obvious that, like, yeah, the Varda film's really well made. Shocking. But just, I think,
big
more
surprise.
proof to her. Right.
Yeah, she was a master of her craft. And especially when you get, like, here, it's 1993. She's been doing this for almost 40 years. Just think about that. Like, she started working in the 50s as a filmmaker. She's worked on so many different films. It only makes sense.
Yeah, and directing through grief. Like, I think that is obviously a really challenging thing to go through for anyone, much less to then turn to work and also not even have work be a distraction, but rather have work like be a reflection on that and be like directly, let's engage with this really sad thing I'm going through and really figure that out. Like, incredibly commendable.
Yeah, I can imagine even just going through the documentary footage, the interviews that she had collected.
Yeah,
mustn't have been easy, but it probably helped in some way. I'm very interested now in seeking out this short documentary about the making of the film 15 years later, because just to see him alive and listen to him talk and like cuddle the cat and move around and whatnot.
And again, with Beaches with Agnes, if anyone watches it, there's a scene where she's setting up the photos of all of her old friends, and she's talking about the death of each one, and she's giving them flowers. And then she gets to his photo, and it's like genuinely one of the most moving scenes I've ever seen in cinema, where she's like, and of course, every flower is for you. Everything is for you. Nothing will ever like not be about you in my life because you were my love. And I feel that grief every day. And she's just sitting there looking at just a still photo, even I believe in black and white, not even in color, of him and in his youth performing, I believe. And it's like, the love there, whether or not you want to get into the complexities of the relationship. And I think love is very individual, right? What love means. Love can mean a lot of things.
Very complex.
Love doesn't mean a lot of things, right? So very complex. But this is one where there's like no doubt there's love here.
Can you remind me, is Beaches of Agnes the one where she also goes to visit the grave?
Yes.
Or was that? Oh, it was. Okay, yeah. I was wondering if it maybe was Faces Places. Okay. Or maybe both, actually.
Remember there's
Faces,
also... No, I
It's
don't
been
either.
too long.
I'm not a huge fan of that one, I'll be honest. There's also Varda by Agnes, which is kind of like just more
Also,
of
right,
Beaches with
yeah.
Agnes. But no, Beaches with Agnes, she does visit the grave. I'm not a big fan of Varda by Agnes either. I think Beaches with Agnes is like the spot if you're a big Agnes fan. But I mean, obviously check out the rest for work also. Nick, is there anything left with this film that you would want to discuss? I'm not going to try to pronounce
Carson
it again.
finding
So
every way
sorry.
not to say its
Literally,
name.
the film, yeah.
No, I want to say the last thing I really loved about this film was the ending, because I was wondering how is she going to close this, and so the fact that there's no big climax, there's no crescendo or anything. It's just, well, it is Jacquot de Nantes. He stopped being that little kid when he became Jacques Demy, the filmmaker, and so he left the town. So there's no need to show anything more about him going to Paris, making le film, pour le cinématographe, and then just she ends with this. I mentioned earlier, like the editing, the way she can use just one or two cuts to say so much with the documentary portions with voiceover, and here the final two shots are just a gut punch of simplicity. Just speaking of the Beaches of Agnes, this nice beach with just like shots of the beach, and the camera is moving, and there is Jacques just sitting down on the beach, looking right down into the lens, and hard cut to a wide shot of a beach completely empty. Roll credits. It's like, fuck. Okay. Woof. Simple. Very simple. Super effective. Bravo. Truly.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of those endings that if you're not like in tears or holding them back, I don't know. I don't know what it says about you, but I don't see that reality for me anytime soon. It is wonderful, and it's just overall very. I mean, with Varda in general, just understands the effectiveness of imagery in a way that very few have. Absolutely. If you want to watch Jacquot de Nantes, whatever it's fucking called,
Jacquot de Nantes.
I don't speak. I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm so sorry. I'm an American. English is our official language of our country now. Sorry, I don't know. You can find this streaming as well as Varda's entire filmography on the Criterion channel, at least in America. Also widely available to purchase and rent, I believe. But especially in America, where you have access to the Criterion channel, check out these films. They're all there. They're all waiting to be checked out. The big ones are incredible. Like Cleo 5 to 7 is phenomenal. We have a whole conversation on One Sings, the Other Doesn't. And that's a great film.
Vagabond is a better version of Nomadland.
Sure. No arguments here. Like so much great cinema in this filmography. That I think really deserves to be checked out, including this one. So give this one a go. Nick, for our question of the week, we're going to move on from Varda because we are a quarter of the way through the year.
Already.
I don't understand it, but quarter one is in the books. We're asking kind of a two-parter question today. So first off, what is your favorite new release of 2025 that you've seen? You've been to a lot of film festivals, so you'll probably have a better answer than I do. But then also, what is a new discovery? So it's an older film that you have seen for the first time this quarter that you really fell in love with. That's just a gem you want to recommend. So what have you seen that you've appreciated this quarter?
Well, in terms of like newer releases, I think it kind of connects with Jacquot de Nantes as well. You mentioned there's a scene where he goes to watch Snow White, and I have to say the 2025 remake, amazing. It's so good, man.
Gal Gadot.
Stand the Queen. No, actually, my favorite. I've not seen that movie. I doubt I ever will. But my favorite movie, easily of the years I've seen so far, was at the Berlinale, the film that won the Golden Bear, Drömer or Dreams, Sex, Love, the first film of the. I'm not even gonna try. I'm sorry. The director's filmography, Norwegian director. There's a limit to the languages that I can pronounce. But this film was fantastic. Like we were talking right now, actually, about Varda and simplicity, and I think that's a film that finds so much poetry and beauty in everyday life, everyday emotions. Um, it has the potential of being very problematic, of being very cringe. I've read some people that shockingly hated the movie, called it like this is what happens when you make movies woke that have no bite or anything like that, which I find ridiculous. I'd be very interested to see what you think, Carson, if you ever have the chance of watching it. But personally, yes, it's a movie that I deeply, deeply fell in love with, which has not happened much in this year. The only other two movies that I really liked that just come to mind, also seen at that festival, were like The Other Dreams. I mean, it's called Dreams by Michel Franco, Mexican director, and also Blue Moon by Richard Linklater. I really loved. Like there were a bunch of movies I really enjoyed, but Drummer or Dreams (parentheses Sex Love close parentheses) is a standout. While should I go straight into the others as well?
Yeah, go for it.
The other, like, it's like a double feature of sorts, which I did recently for Anatomy of an Adaptation, the other podcast that I host. And it's The Zone of Interest and The White Ribbon, both movies that connect to extremist ideology and fascism and the lies that we like to tell ourselves to sleep at night, just to pretend that everything is fine while the world around us is going to shit. Um, Not fun, not fun watches in any way, but just really, really great cinema that sticks with you and goes right under your skin. Those are my 2.5 favorites.
I love that. I'm gonna have some multiple entries also in mind. So I'll say first for favorite new release, I have a link to Bruce LaBruce's The Visitor sitting in my email. So I've not seen that yet. That could take the cake. Haven't seen it yet,
Let's
but
go
just
with
know
my boy Bishop Black.
that's not considered yet. As someone who's not attended, I think, any film festival this year so far, it's been a rough year for new releases so far. Two stuck out to me, and I think it says something that one of those is Dogman, the animated film. So sweet, so funny. Just one of those where it's like, it genuinely, yes, it's a children's film. It's like 90 minutes long. But it's so smart with its humor, where it's like, I think what a lot of people got from the new Looney Tunes movie, which I was a little bit cold on when I saw it last year, I got from this movie, where I was just like, I had a great time with it. I can't say, I know it's stupid and small, but if you have a great time with cinema, you have a great time with cinema. But Soderbergh's Black Bag, easily my number one so far this year. Not perfect, but super, super fun and engaging spy mystery drama. Just devilish dialogue, great ensemble, great filmmaking. The colors and the lighting of this movie, I love. Again, nothing spectacular, but very, very fun. And hopefully 2025 begins to pick up, because we'll get there in rapid reviews, but like Snow White didn't do a lot for me. So we'll see. As far as just in general things that stuck out to me, I'm not going to repeat everything I've said on this podcast already about these films, but Charles Burnett has been like, what a revelation to discover him.
Yeah.
To Sleep with Anger, such a phenomenal. Have you seen Sleep with
I've
Anger?
not. I wanted to be on the pod just to watch it, and I didn't find the time.
No worries. A phenomenal film. Kelly Reichardt has obviously been a revelation also this year. Not that I haven't seen any of her work before, but really diving in, discovering Old Joy, discovering certain women. If anyone hasn't heard on the Patreon, my episode with Hilary White on certain women, phenomenal episode, one of my favorites and just one of my favorite films. And then also finally, I watched Poltergeist. this quarter, which I think just has to be like one of the coolest movies ever made, to be honest. And
Wow.
for years, I thought this was not going to be for me, but it just takes like the sensibilities of Spielberg and mashes that with Tobe Hooper's sensibilities, and you get like the best of both worlds. Where it's not maybe the best film ever made, right? It's not the most deep. It's not actually. There's a lot. To be fair, there's a lot here actually about American culture and American like. There's a lot here to digest. To be fair, but it's just also the filmmaking's like the coolest movie ever made. I don't know. I really walked away with like, booyah, that was awesome. Like, love cinema, love film. American cinema sometimes rules, and that's an example of it. So those would be ones that stuck out to me. But I would say, while new releases have been pretty shit, what I'm watching otherwise is pretty great. I would say the podcast, we've covered some great cinema, personally covered some great cinema, and hopefully that will continue also throughout the year. Now let's get to our rapid reviews. Anything we've seen recently that we haven't talked about. I will quickly just get through mine. I already mentioned I watched Donkey Skin, great film. Snow White, not great, right? Like Gal Gadot's really bad as a person and as an actor in this. Rachel Zegler is great. I will say she is a star. Every single project I see her in, she is just has the ability to carry a movie. This is probably one of the better Disney live action remakes, if we're being honest about like it has a pretty strong message. Weirdly, like for a film like this that already is so caught in the political discourse, a pretty like pointed political message about socialism and like about the need to, it's like kind of bold in a way you wouldn't expect from Disney, but like ultimately when you boil it down, yes, it's kind of just more Disney slop, but in a way that I felt was a little bit more enjoyable and shorter than a lot of their other remakes they've done recently.
Did you feel the Mark Webb touch? His signature directorial
Oh my god.
style.
You know what sucks? You know what's terrible? This is like easily my favorite Mark Webb film of
Oh
all
my
time.
god.
Yeah, like, I have his ranked list on my letterbox now. It's like this, Amazing Spider-Man, 500 Days of Summer, Amazing Spider-Man 2. And this is like far above the rest of them. Horrific reality I live in. Beaches of Agnes mentioned, fantastic. Rewatched Wicked with friends, felt exactly, and I've wanted to rewatch this because I only saw it in the theater, and I was like, maybe I missed something. People love this film. Still exactly 3 stars on it. I feel exactly the same way as I did before. On YouTube, it's available elsewhere, but it's available on YouTube. Gaza Fights for Freedom. Everyone needs to watch this movie. There's been a lot of content breaking down this conflict from a human perspective about emotions. For example, No Other Land. And that's a great way to cover conflict, is to show the human emotions. But I find, especially with the current conflict with Gaza, a lot of people lack just the understanding of like what is happening, what is the history here, what does it mean. This film very dynamically, very engaging, breaks down this entire history and breaks down where all the conflict took place. This is from 2019, I want to say, so it's not necessarily the most up to date, but if you want a really great historical look at like what is this conflict, why are they mad at each other, what is the continued aggression from both sides, this is, I think, a really, really wonderful look at like the meaning behind all that. Super upsetting, super haunting still, but I think this is very informational. And then finally, this is one that could have been my answer for biggest discovery. Dee Rees, I finally watched Pariah, their directorial debut. Oh
nice.
my gosh, what a great film about a queer youth growing up in Brooklyn, who has to deal with kind of their coming out process being taken from them, and showing that entire process with a family that is not necessarily accepting. So I wish I had this film when I was in high school to take a look at this really tragic and horrific drama to be going through as a young person, but come away with a takeaway of like, I am not broken, I am free, like I am myself, and you can't take that from me. Really, really inspiring, really beautiful film. A clean 86 minutes. So if you've not seen it, I highly recommend you watch it. But a pretty good week, I'd say, overall. Nick, what have you seen this week?
You reminded me I need to watch Pariah. I'm very ashamed of saying it was in my university recommended viewing list, and I've seen most of them. A list that also has, I want to say, 2 Agnès Varda films, so they had a very good taste. But yeah, I haven't seen Pariah yet. So, in terms of me, I was very, very busy with work this week, so I didn't manage to watch a lot. I finally finished Chapel Wait, the now miniseries, originally season 1 of a cancelled show starring Adrian Brody, based on a short story by Stephen King that directly ties to Salem's Lot. Too long. 10 hours. No, too long. Should have been a 5-episode TV show. I watched like 10 Agnès Varda short films. um, but one that I particularly liked is it's L'Opéra Bouffe, which is, I want to say, Diary of a Pregnant Lady. It's called in English, which is like 17 minutes, very kind of like this musical documentary surreal piece about a pregnant woman and all the emotions she's going through. Some people have called it like Agnès Varda's Eraserhead. Just a bizarre comparison to make, but sure, if that intrigues you, go watch it. I also did watch, of course, also 2004's Salem's Lot and 2024's, because we did an episode recording with the good Jakub Flash of Anka Gems. 2024's sucks. It's just clearly chopped up in the editing. You can kind of salvage, I want to say, 2/3 of that film with a better edit, longer edit. The ending will always suck because that's the climax. There's nothing you can do about it. But 2004 was actually pretty good with Rob Lowe, Rutger Hauer, Donald Sutherland, the late Andrew Brower as well. It's like, damn, solid cast, solid cast. But also another movie, and the last movie I did watch this week, that also for me could have actually been in the best discoveries of the year was Fassbinder's last film, Querelle. It was just really, really, really good film. Very just sweaty and hot in a good way, but also in a bad way. Just this oppressive yellow fake light in this expressionist sets about gay men that don't want to accept they're gay men and being violent towards other people, but also being very loving towards each other. Maybe the gayest movie Fassbinder has made, definitely from the ones that I've seen, which is like 15 or so at this point. And yes, it's intoxicating. I love it when it's not too focused on plotting. There's like a couple of parts where it just gets a bit too lost in people and stuff. It's probably just a byproduct of being based on a book. There are direct quotations from said book, and you know what that means. I'm interested in doing an episode of Anatomy of an Adaptation, probably like next year or something. But I really do want to read the book, even just for myself, to see how that compares and what Fassbinder brought to it. Kind of weird that he ended his career on such a high note for what was essentially a director for hire job. What a weird week of movie watching.
Quirrell is such a fun experience because it's so colorful, as you mentioned. It's so sweaty and it's so gay. I like how you're like, this is one of his gays. It's a very gay film, so I'd be shocked if there were many gayer than this. But then you just like turn away for like maybe 20 seconds. I was watching this with Paul, and so you turn away, talk about something for 20 seconds, turn back, and you're like, wait, what is this murder plot? What is all this? Like, wait, it's like it develops such a weirdly deep side plot that makes no sense.
It's the guy and the thing and there's the port captain, and then there's the thing, but there's the people, but there's the wife of the bar owner, but there's the brother, but he's not the brother. What the fuck? Okay.
And that's like 20% of the film. The rest 80%, for anyone who hasn't seen this, and I figure like it's probably most people watching this, is just like this very, very atmospheric kind of gay expression of like lust and sexuality and muscle and bodies, and then it's just this really in-depth side plot. It's very odd, but definitely would recommend everyone watch it. I think also streaming on Criterion. So
I managed to watch it because it was about to leave Mubi. It was one of those things like, hey, what's leaving Mubi soon? It was like at midnight. Querelle. I was like, oh shit. I had planned to watch Jacquot de Nantes. I was like, Jacquot can wait. This is Fassbinder night. And there's a bunch of others. Like, I don't know if I want to annoy you, but like, there's this list. Probably we'll talk about them, hopefully, during the next episode that we record. But I have, at this point, 9 days to watch 16 movies that are leaving Mubi. It's like there's some Jacques Tati, there's some Eric Romer, and Ulrich Seidel. Those are essentially the main ones, including one. There's the first Yorgos Lanthimos film, which I don't think you've seen it either. Kineta.
Alps or
Kineta.
never.
It's like 2005. It's one of those things where it's like, wasn't Dogtooth the first one? Like, no, Dogtooth was not the first one. There's actually another real first one. So we'll see.
It's kind of like how with Luca, you're like, it started with I Am Love, and you're kind of like, if you know, you're like, yeah, that definitely was the first one. If you don't know, you're like, yeah, there's actually these other, yeah.
And they do have the protagonists on Mubi streaming here, so I need
do?
to check it out. They do, yeah.
Oh, I've been looking for that film. I think
If you have Mubi, VPN works great.
Is it not on Mubi here? Oh, it's not Mubi here now, too. It wasn't for the longest time. I don't have Mubi, but I might get a month of it just for that. I get caught in the trap like that, where with Criterion Channel also has a section where it's like everything leaving this month, and I get too lost in like trying to watch it all, so I just have to ignore that. This week I'll be watching a lot of obscure films directed by women, so I'm excited for that.